room so we don't echo.
Okay, recording.
Recording. So, ikomo mai, welcome everyone to this very, very special edition of Aloha from Your Future Self, which I was guided to do on the new moon every month with a process that we'll do today that takes us into, that allows us, basically, we're going to time travel a year into the future, and we're going to be like it was it's a year later, and we're getting together and we're talking about what has transpired in that year. And so there's no limit. Don't think, oh, that couldn't happen. We're in the quantum field and anything is possible. And that's the frequency we want to hold. And this is just going to be like free form. I'll get us started just so that those of you, I don't know if any of you have Kylego'd before. That's the kind of the process of how I learned it. There's other people that do something similar. But I'll get us started just so you get the feel of it. And I want to say in advance, and I know you all know me and love me, but I was raised a white girl in the South. And there are very possibly, likely, inherent racist things that I am totally unaware of. And so if I say something stupid, let's just start with Ho'oponopono. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. And it's been interesting to see a lot of Black people putting their, I don't know, Samantha, is everybody, I can see everybody on this side. Could be your connection. Am I frozen?
You're not frozen.
Okay, good. Is that I see Black people posting their stories of like what their life is like and what it's like to walk outside of their door every day. And I'm realizing there's these beautiful people here and many others that I hold dear, and I have no idea what it's like to be them, to be a person of color in this culture. And it's heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking. And so on that note, we shall go to the future. You're sideways, Samantha. Okay.
I didn't hear anything you just said because it was frozen and there was nothing coming through, so I left it, came back in.
Okay, well, it's recorded. You can get the first part. We haven't started the process. But I think what I want to do, since you're all goddesses and priestesses here, is I do want to call in all of our ancestors. I call in all of our ancestors to be with us as what is happening is healing all generations, backwards and forward. And I call in our future selves, and the future selves of our children, our grandchildren, physical or things that we've birthed. And I take us forward in time, a year from now. Well, aloha, everyone. It's so good to see you again. I remember we got together a year ago, and so much has happened in that year. And I just want to say, from my point of view, I remember when the slave program that was enslaving the earth, the entire earth, when that program got exposed and got broken. And there were people of color on this planet that knew they were slaves. They were in a slavery program. And there were white people who had this advantage, who had no idea that they were in a slavery program. But it was the obvious what was happening with the people of color that really brought it to the attention and woke things up. And here we are today with equality, and everyone has equal access to all the resources they need. And there are multiracial communities that are enriching everyone's life because all the cultures have so much beauty and differences that make life rich and beautiful, and everyone is embracing diversity instead of thinking it was something to fear. Like, what were we thinking? I mean, what we were all missing out on for not embracing the beautiful diversity of humanity on this planet. So we'll just do this popcorn. So if somebody wants to pop in and tell me what they remember that happened that year, I want you sisters to lead on and let me know how it was and what happened for you.
I remember that people finally got the point. They went through the coronavirus. They went through the murders that weren't new, but were now being televised. And they finally got it. They finally saw what's been going on. They saw underneath what was happening. And they began to, first of all, look internally at, okay, how have I actually contributed to this, whether it's passively or in action or in apathy or however they were showing up. But they actually really took a look at themselves, and they took a new stand for themselves. They actually dropped into their sovereignty, into their power, and they actually got the point that one person can make a difference. And by one person making a difference, and by the next person making a difference, and by the next person making a difference, there was this huge ripple out. And everyone became about personal responsibility, which meant that then we could actually work as a community because people weren't blaming each other like, oh, it's your problem. But they actually got to work together like, okay, I've been doing this, the Ho'oponopono, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. What can we do together? And just the beautiful process of it actually becoming a community, like family, how we live here in Hawaii, Ohana, it actually became something that was global. So this, seemingly global upset actually became a global gift.
Mm-hmm.
And over this time, which I think the start of it, I refer to, from the start of it, I refer to it as the Corona cocoon, because each of us needed a little time away from what was the old normal to reckon with ourselves. What did we really want our new normal to be? Did we want more of the same? Or did we want to take action and really recognize our power to change what we didn't want to see anymore? And it seemed that once people had kind of looked inside, they were able to look outside now with more clarity and more purpose and more compassion for each other that we had not really been having for each other in a long, long time. And I think that wave of compassion started with the idea of recognizing people who were our first responders, and it spread out to everybody, who really was the idea of protecting other people from our germs. Not the mask didn't protect us from anything, it protected someone else. So we started to really understand how we were each responsible for each other. And if we didn't act in a responsible way toward each other, that we would just get things back. And since that's not what happened, and we continue on this journey of compassion for one another, we were able to spark fundamental and lasting changes that continue to grow even now. The journey isn't over, it's just begun, but we're able to see from a different vantage point perspective, what is possible for us to have now that we didn't know before.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. I also remember that there was this beautiful rollout of reparations to indigenous cultures.
Mhm.
You know, the Native Americans, the Hawaiians, the Black people who were brought over in slavery. There started to be these really apparent putting energy in action, putting money in action, actually putting the apology or the wanting to do something different in action. And it was beautiful to actually see the reparations, and also that they began honoring these indigenous cultures, because these indigenous cultures, they started to teach us how to live with the land, how to actually co-create with Mother Earth, and how we saw that, you know, just by having people in lockdown for some time got to heal part of Mother Earth. It didn't stop there, because then the humans, they actually were going back to these indigenous practices that honored the earth. So we actually got to create momentum for the earth and the healing, rather than just it, you know, as soon as everybody starts coming out, it just blows back up. It didn't go back the way it was. So again, people learned, they accepted their responsibility. They started honoring both the earth and the cultures that really honored the earth and the way of being that we're all stepping into now.
And Samantha, you'll need to unmute yourself if you want to speak. You're muted right now.
Yeah,
Or
I do that.
unmute
I do
your
that. I
thing.
do that on purpose so that
Oh,
there's
okay.
not background noise.
Okay,
Because
thank
I'm
you.
hard of hearing, and when there's background noise, it's really hard for me. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Well, you're up, gorgeous.
So I've never done this before, Moonfire, and I'm not really versed. I mean, I can speak about how I'm, you know, I'm living in my community, which I worked really hard to build, and it's like hippie style. We all have our own little tiny homes, and then we have a big, you know, community house where we all come together and have dinners and meals and things like that, but we all help each other. So that's where I'm living at in you know, a year from now. We're all living on the land here in Maui, supporting each other and loving each other. Yeah.
Well, I'm interested to know, what is it like for, and this is addressed to the three of you, what's it like now to be a person of color in this country? Because I remember how, you know, so many said, you know, it's every day they walk out their door and there's something that they have to deal with. What's it like now to walk outside your door and be Black or brown?
Well, I think in many ways it has changed, and there's more to change. But I think the idea of white people feeling so privileged as to confront you about what you're doing where and whatever changed a great deal due to a lot of videos of people being exposed for just being, you know, not necessarily racist, but definitely assholes. Excuse my language. So,
That's kind of the same thing.
okay. And so I think a lot of that kind of exposure, and I think what happened too was many people were not aware that what they were doing was actually problematic. They thought, oh, well, I'm just making sure my neighborhood is safe because, you know, who knows if so-and-so will come by, or, you know, somebody's painting something somewhere, maybe they're not supposed to do that. And recognizing that it's their responsibility to be their neighbor's brother and sister and not their policeman. And so a lot of that melted away with the idea that once we started to defund police militaristic programs, and we started to give more money to programs that actually helped people who needed help rather than jail, a lot of the things that were problematic ceased to be so problematic. And as more police officers began to be charged or fired, and once that immunity was gone from them, and they recognized they couldn't just do whatever they wanted to, whoever they wanted to. And let's face it, when this started, there were a lot of people being mistreated, Black, white, brown, indigenous, whatever, because they were threatening that kind of police militaristic authority. And now that a lot of that is gone, there's a lot less to worry about. I mean, there's still assholes in the world, there's still overzealous police people, but it's not the same because it's recognized now that this is not how people should behave by the vast majority of people. And that when you see that, you start recording and you stand up for the person who's in a situation they shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I also remember that I dropped these barriers that I didn't even know that I had. That, you know, I experienced being multiracial. I experienced racism from both sides. So I had kind of in this ingrained barrier system, and a lot of it I didn't take personally, but I had set up these kind of barriers that I wasn't even aware of. And I remember as they started to peel away during this last year, it was amazing how my heart opened up and how I could actually be more present and be more loving because I wasn't protecting myself in a way that I hadn't known that I was. So that was really, really such a beautiful process to me. And I get to see it with others of color as well who had these barriers, and we don't have to move other places now to feel accepted. Like the first time I felt at home was in Italy, then the second time was moving here to Maui. But people who haven't had to move or who didn't have the chance to move, they're actually feeling at home wherever they are, whatever the cultural makeup of their community is, they actually feel like they're at home and that they don't have to protect themselves internally and externally.
Yeah, I just remember when that whole thing just cleared, the ease I found, I felt around, you know, my brothers and sisters of color, that they just, you could just feel that there's something in them had just relaxed, that they didn't have to always feel like they were on guard. And, you know, what began to happen is they began to blossom and were able to contribute all these beautiful gifts to, you know, to society, to the collective, to their communities. And it was just, I mean, you could just literally palpably feel this sigh of relief that just went around the planet because people felt safe. The feeling of safety was palpable. And it was beautiful to feel that when it happened, when it just really just encompassed the planet.
Mm-hmm. And it was really beautiful to know that we really averted World War III. Like, we really got to see spirit versus war, how humans were living in so many ways, so many hidden ways, so many ways in the financial system, in the cultural system, in the social system, in communities and things like that. So by people actually acknowledging what was happening, because that's the first place, is to acknowledge it's actually happening and not to bypass it, people actually started not ignoring things, but they actually, again, took personal responsibility. And as a planet, we were the ones who averted this war because we actually leaned into spirit rather than continuing the divisive energy that had been going on for, as long as humans have been alive. So we really learned and are now creating new systems and ways of being that support a culture that's really divine, that's really loving to everyone and everything, that's really about community and the land and how we can honor each other and the earth and everything. And it's really beautiful to have been alive to see this. And to see the children that were born in that time also was really remarkable, because to see that these children have these gifts and that they will take this forward into the new generation, and that we actually got to seed some ease for them and seed some change so that their gifts can be used, but it'll be a little easier than it was for us. So how remarkable it was to see this over the last year and to know that, again, it's just the beginning.
Yes.
One of the most remarkable things for me, I think, looking back, is how white brothers and sisters were finally able to confront their own feelings of guilt or shame about what their ancestors have done. Because I think sometimes when we don't admit that, hey, our history hasn't been the greatest, my people have done this or that over time, it can feel like a reflection of who you are now as opposed to what has happened before. And once this started to happen, I feel that people were able to finally discuss and finally able to be real with one another, because many times before, news reports would be like, well, so this event happened. No, the event didn't happen. Someone actually brought it about. The town didn't spontaneously burn down. People came to the town and burned it down. And once we can admit, and this was especially beautiful for white brothers and sisters to admit that, yes, my ancestors did that, but I'm capable of change, and I don't have to be in that place where my ancestors were, and that we can all grow in peace and love and understanding with one another, and not be victims of that that former mentality, that we can all become, find each other in equity, which is something that's so beautiful that has come about from this.
Yes.
The one thing that I'm loving the most is the conversations I'm having with my friends and my family and even strangers. Like, we're not scared to have the tough conversations anymore. And we're learning together. Nonviolent communication is so in right now. People are like learning together and teaching each other and sitting and being patient and learning how to actively listen and love each other from a place that's real. And that we can actually hear each other and not talk over each other. And that's been the biggest thing for me in watching this transformation over the last year is watching people's hearts soften, coming back to their inner child and remembering we all just want to play together. We all just want to love each other. It's like everyone wants to be heard and loved and hugged and played with. And and it's so beautiful to watch that we're actually finally doing that as a human race.
Yay!
Yay!
Because in reality, there's only one. And
Yes.
we have come in the last year to realize that there is only one race,
The human race.
the human race, and we all rise or fall together. So let's rise. And that's what we've been doing this past year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And as you
Yeah.
said, the brothers and sisters, everyone
Yeah.
began to actually see each other as
Yes.
family, as brothers and sisters, not as, oh, them and us. There actually started to be a coming together, and again, that one race, the human race, and acting together as one. And it's going to be really remarkable to see what happens in the next year, and then the year after that, and the year after that, because we actually are now working together, whereas that had not been what was happening.
Yeah, I actually love that we're actually going, not in a negative way, but back, right? Back to our roots as living as tribes and community. And, that saying that it takes a village, right? And so the keikis are all running around, and all the aunties and uncles, and like everybody's watching the keikis. It's not one person's responsibility. They're like, they're all of ours, and that's my heart is filled. I mean, get chicken skin all the time. I'm surrounded by these beautiful little beings that are just like, auntie, 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 and I'm like, what? And it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting about that, Samantha, is it was the people of color that helped us do that, because generally, from what I've seen in communities, in the indigenous cultures and the people of color, they do tend to be more family oriented and
Yeah.
extended family, and everybody takes care of everything. The whole
Right.
solo family thing is, from what I see, is mostly a white thing, and it don't work too well. So we like that way better. Yeah.
But see, as I said, once we began to see each other as brothers and sisters, then we could adopt whatever worked for us.
Yeah,
We
that's
were
the
not
beauty.
all of a sudden then still confined into what we were doing before. Because once you have greater freedom and you can choose whatever you like, you can choose whatever works for you in your particular circumstance. And there's very many ways in which we do, I think Sophia was saying before, how we have in the past found ourselves in these boxes where to define yourself as a person of color or Black or a woman or this or that, you have to find yourself in a box in order to find acceptance. And if you strayed outside that box, then there were plenty of people on either side, or whatever side there was, looking at you askance because, but wait a minute, that's not how, Black people or women or people of color, that's not how we do things. But once we achieved more freedom, we could then adopt whatever made sense for us and whatever felt right for us without so much judgment from anybody. We started to lift all these judgments that we had made about each other, what we were like, what we were supposed to do, where we were supposed to go, what we were supposed to do. And now everyone can feel comfortable where they are, accepted where they are, welcome where they are.
Yes. That feeling of no judgment, it was a profound feeling all around the planet, because where there's judgment, there can't be gratitude. So it started actually with gratitude for how people were showing up, how the conversations were going, how people were actually standing up for each other. And that gratitude morphed into love, and that love morphed into no judgment. And then, as Dee was saying, then people didn't have to label anyone or anything. It could just be, I love you, you're human, we're doing this together. And that's how we're moving forward in our respective communities and as a planet together. We are literally, for the first time, doing this together.
And I remember how when we all got to that place, and started realizing we were one human race, and we started working together instead of against each other, we began to see who the real controllers were. And as we stood together, all taking back the power from humanity, the freedom and what happened on the planet with, returning to indigenous ways and everyone having access to resources that were no longer controlled by a 1%, because we all stood together as one human race.
And that was one of the most profound parts of the last year, was people coming to recognize and then act that we are not the victims of the power people. Each of us is a power person, and that when we come together, there is nothing that can stand before us. And once we realized that, and we began to take our power back, it made a complete shift in how we were working together and who was in control of what.
Yeah. Amen. That was a big one. That was a biggie.
Yes. And I remember that there actually was a letting go of control, because control has been one of the most divisive things, hoarding and controlling and things like that. But again, they started to come together, and how can we actually have a benefit for everyone? And that started to seed control. It actually, like, okay, how can we actually create, priestess councils and government councils and financial councils and earth councils and all these ways of being, so that we could actually work together instead of, one person or one group having control. It actually became less about the individual or the group, but it became about the whole, so that there wasn't a controlling, but it was a system, a new system that was really for the benefit of everyone and everything.
Yeah, we went from a hierarchy to a circle of advisors and wise women, particularly. We went back to the circle of grandmothers, adding their wisdom to decisions, and it benefited everyone. Decisions were made for 7 generations forward.
And it really was visionary of President Biden to fill his cabinet with women of color before he passed away. And we now have President Kamala Harris.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a good decision.
It was historic. It was definitely historic, just as, when President Obama was, the first Black man, but now there was the first woman. And Camilla, I mean, she covered everything, and being a first in so many ways, and in a historic way of ruling, and ruling in a way that serves as well as reigns.
Yes. And that's why she is able to join all of the other women leaders around the globe who spared their countries from the really bad effects of the coronavirus by their, feminine leadership. And now most of the globe is headed up by women. And who would have thought that a year ago?
But wow, the changes it made, the changes it needed to happen to have that divine feminine come back to the planet. It was really, that's what was being birthed. And but boy, that was a crazy ride though, wasn't it? I mean, I remember there was times I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not sure I want to be here. And then it got to the point, was like, this is exciting. This is why I came, because this is the incarnation of lifetimes to be able to experience and be a part of this evolution of the planet, and this birth of the divine feminine and masculine in right relationship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, it's funny. I don't know if you know this, Victoria, but I was actually born dead. And I've always, all my life, wondered, like, well, why am I here? Because, you know, nobody even knows how it kind of happened, but that's another story. But I think I really, really wanted to be on the planet right now. I think that's really just what it was. I really, really wanted to be on the planet right now, to be looking back over the past year and seeing exactly what's been happening, and how so much of what's happening now is really the fruit borne by so many generations of men and women, black and white, indigenous people all around the world seeking freedom. So this is a great time to be here, to experience, to see it, and to help priestess it in, midwife it in to to what's happening on the planet.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, that priestess energy has been so powerful, because no longer was entire nations and the planet looking at women as the weaker sex, or that we were the ones that actually, you know, when we talked about racism, there are black men, but there are also black women who they were even seen as less than. So that was abolished. And now these women are actually taking their power. And when we look back in history, matriarchal societies were the ones who actually prospered. And now the entire planet is being informed by the divine feminine, which actually is the marriage of the feminine and the masculine. So that is what is leading our culture, and, you know, history is being rewritten actually in a way that is truthful about what happened. That the future is being rewritten because of this divine feminine energy that's being brought forward, that is actually balanced, because for so long we were out of balance, but this year has allowed us to come into balance, the masculine and the feminine, the empowerment, the personal responsibility, the communing with the earth, and just this beautiful Christ consciousness energy has permeated everyone and everything. And it's really the revolution became the human evolution. And that's what we did.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I remember when you all, you Dee, because all of us are already in Hawaii. I'm realizing all of a sudden. I remember when you came out, because we had this wonderful priestess goddess retreat, and we did a lot of ceremony, and we you know, did a lot of work in the community, and just really helped to move forward what happened on the planet, just like, you know, just like we're kind of, you know, we're doing a year ago. And I'm looking forward to when you and everybody that was there come out again, you know, to do work here and just take things to the next level. And what an amazing group of priestesses that was, from, you know, all races and genders and all kinds of things, because we wanted all of those different voices to add into what we were creating.
Absolutely, because without all of the voices, then we are still allowing someone to be powerless because they have no voice. So having us all come together, and whoever wants to speak, and that was the real beauty of coming together, was that everyone had a voice. Everyone had opportunity to participate. Everybody brought themselves, as opposed to sometimes you go to events and you bring event me to places. We really were able to be ourselves, our authentic selves. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Beautiful.
And there was really a reclamation of the identity system. You know, you talked about the genders and the labels and all of these things, and they actually went away. And the only identity became divine. It wasn't about being, you know, lesbian or transgender or male or female or black or white. Again, we just really got to the original blueprint of we are all human, we are all divine, we are living expressions of the divine, and there was no need for any labels. And so those that felt they didn't have an identity, they now got to claim their truest identity and their truest power and their truest voice and their truest way of being, and they felt like, I have a place. And I have a voice, and I'm to be here. And the scripture when the coronavirus first happened that I kept hearing is, you were born for such a time as this. And everyone now knows that they were born for this time, and they're actually grateful for it, and they're creating from it.
Yeah, because I remember how the freedom that everyone had to be their authentic self. Like there was no, because everyone felt safe and accepted, and the labels went away. Because to me, that's to return to original innocence. To me, innocence is no labels. Because if you think about being innocent, then that means that there's no, when you're a child, it's like, that's when you start to learn labels. You don't know that, you know, the bowl is not a swimming pool or the plant is not a bug. I mean, you're taught these things. And so you just, you know, it's just made up stuff. So with feeling safe and not having labels, people could really authentically just be the beautiful, you know, person and flavor of God that they were.
Yeah, and I think for me this last year has been really great for the very sensitive, you know, the empathic, the highly sensitive people that, you know, most of our lives we're told you're too much, you're too sensitive, you're too this, you're too that. And, you know, we are finally in our own, you know, with the, you know, the labels going away, and everybody gets what a gift that a highly sensitive person can bring to any situation. It is, you know, like the best Geiger device of all, you know. And that's just, you know, another one of those things that just made my heart sing, that we finally see and respect and love each other for where we're at and how God made us, instead of, you know, you're too loud, you're too gregarious, you're too this, you're too that. And instead it's celebration. Oh my gosh, you are so loud and beautiful and gregarious and fabuloso, you know. And we throw parties for those beautiful people, for all of us beautiful people, you know, the quiet ones, the loud ones, I mean, you know, it's not, we finally get to show up and be who we are without all this backlash of BS.
And judgment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I remember too, as a sensitive person and empath, it was such a relief to not have all that shit to empath anymore. Like, there was a whole lot less crap in the collective that we had to deal with. Thank you very much.
Man, I tell you, I'm sleeping a lot better. I'm telling
me
you that.
too.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and the planet is just so lovely. She's so green, and the air is so clean, and oh my gosh, the waters of Maui are just so clear, and the fish are, and the whales. Oh my gosh, the whales this year, it was our highest year so far. That's been incredible.
Well, we have to admit too that there's a lot fewer people on the planet to be corrupting her right now. So she's been able to really regenerate and respond to the fact that there's lots fewer people, and that the people that there are taking much better care of her.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Finally seeing her as our, our mama that feeds us and bathes us, and like, Mama Earth does it all. Like, on some level, people are finally getting that, and it's so fabulous. And Greta, oh my gosh, Greta's just busting more walls and more things, and I'm just in love with her. I feel like
goddesses. Go ahead.
I can't remember that song, but it's like I feel like it's from the movie Moana. It's a brand new world or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't even know, but I'm like ready to break out in song, and I don't even know the words.
Oh, I love it. Goodness.
Well, goddesses, it has been quite the year. And thank you for joining in today and telling me what it was like for you and what you were up to. And I just think the next year is going to be even more fabulous. And we'll get together and celebrate and play and talk and have fires and swim in the ocean and do ceremony and just really commune with the land. So
Wahine warrior goddesses. Yes. And it'll be so cool to look back and watch this video and see how much has even more change and more love in the world. I can't wait for that.
I know.
It's going to be my favorite part, honestly.
Good idea. We got a little, so we do have a little time capsule here, going back into the time machine and getting back into the birthing room where the contractions are still happening. This is recorded. I have been recording, but I haven't posted them. But I really feel like that I'm going to post it on my page so people can watch it, because truly, sisters, this is a transmission from the future. And the people can listen to this and add their yes to it and add their own imaginations of what they're creating for the future and hook onto it and add their energy. So I will do that. And I love you. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for not only showing up for this call, but thanks for showing up on the planet in this time in my life.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hui ho. Aloha.
Aloha.